I remember the day he left me. My dad got sick all of a sudden. He just came home and broke the news that he only had a few months to live. That it was terminal. My eyes got filled up with tears. I refused to believe such a thing. I started praying to God to let him stay with me. I cried, I pleaded, but no one answered. Not even a sign that he heard me. Nothing. Emptiness filled my breaking heart as shards of glass punctured my weary soul. My dad was my all. Growing up, I looked up to him. He was my idol. I respected and loved him so much, I didn't even think the day would come where I'd have to say goodbye. Seeing how much and how fast his body was deteriorating felt devastating. He lost so much weight in a few weeks, and he was almost unrecognizable in his final days. He was just laying in bed waiting to die. White, thin, and pale like a ghost. He couldn't even talk anymore. His words came out like hisses. On his last day, he was very, very scared and nervous. He just kept looking in the corner of the room. The fear in his eyes instilled a deep dread in me, too. I felt a sense of impending doom taking over the whole house. And then my dad started shaking. He was hyperventilating and kept staring in the corner of the room. He pointed at it and just screamed. The scream pierced my ears, a sharp, high-pitched noise causing an instant headache. I still remember the moment he gave his last breath. If hell existed, I was living in it. At that exact moment when my father died, all my world came crashing down. The heavy burden was laid on my shoulders. I felt like all the bad feelings in the world combined into a new one. One that was specifically designed only for me to feel. His burial took place the next day. The heavens opened up and rain poured over the casket in big drops. The whole family wept and grieved, and the wake was so silent afterward. It was like there were no more words left to say. But I had things that I needed and wanted to say to my dad. I'd have given anything just to spend a little bit more time with him. The days passed on. Time just didn't stop because it didn't feel right. It moved on, and I felt emptier by the day. My father's passing wasn't just a tragic event for me, but it also instilled a fear in me that I had never felt before. I was on edge. I wanted to see him one last time. So I started researching the topic of contacting those who had passed away. I wanted to see if there was any possible way where I could hear my dad's voice one more time. I began praying to different deities. I hoped long-forgotten gods and goddesses would hear me. I just hoped that one of them would grant me my wish. Then one night, the inexplicable happened. While I was sleeping, the whole house started shaking violently. Half asleep, I asked myself if a bulldozer forcibly started destroying my home. The lights began flickering on and off. Dancing shadows appeared on the wall, and at points they looked like people dancing in a funeral waltz for the end of the world. I felt my blood turning to a dense liquid metal. The hairs on my back rose, and the subsequent fear invaded my whole body. I had never been so afraid in my life before. I heard a deep metallic whirring echoing through the house, and all the mirrors shattered simultaneously. The sound of them breaking was high-pitched, and I feared I'd go deaf for the rest of my life. And then all of a sudden, everything stopped. The silence of the night came back. The only sound I was hearing was the drumming of my heart. It felt like a ticking bomb on the verge of detonating itself. Then the weirdest thing happened. The doorbell rang. I momentarily froze, asking myself, who could have been on the doorstep in the middle of the night? I quickly ran downstairs to open it. A whole new feeling of horror filled my heart with darkness. Dread was creeping up my spine and onto my brain. I felt like I was struck by a lightning of fear. The thunder that followed crashed into my soul like an avalanche of depressive thoughts. My dad was standing in front of me. He was dressed exactly like on the day of his funeral, a black suit and shoes with a tie decorated with white dots. He looked exactly like I last saw him, thin, pale, worn out. I knew this was physically impossible. I imagined maggots and bugs crawling inside him. He just stared at me. He extended an arm and pointed it at me, and I screamed at the top of my lungs. This wasn't happening. I knew I wanted this, but I wasn't lucid when I asked for it. A veil of grief and fear fell over my face the day my father died. It clouded my judgment, and I simply lost it for a while. And right then, it felt like reality punched me in the face with a metal fist filled with dread. I looked over my dad's shoulder, and I saw a strange figure standing there. A bald old man with a long gray beard looked at me. He held a scythe in his right hand. His eyes were missing the iris and retina, they were just white. He, too, looked at me insistently, almost demandingly. I saw my dead dad's lips move. He was trying to speak. No words come out of his mouth, though, just barely audible whispers. After almost a minute of trying to speak, a voice came through. It wasn't his own, though. It was the man's voice speaking through my dad. "Hello. Someone fulfilled your wish. I know how hard you tried, how desperate you were about seeing and talking to your dad one more time. I have many things to tell you. It would be better to go inside your home, young man," the voice said. I froze. It felt like time had just stopped in place. I was a statue, unable to move. A prisoner held captive by the chains of this new existential fear that was blooming in my chest. Dad was standing at his favorite chair. I wondered if he remembered that. I wondered if he remembered me, or anything from his former life. My dad was so thin that I could see through him. This was not how I imagined him to be. This is not how I wanted to meet him again. I felt like my fear had a voice of its own, and it kept asking me, "What have you done? What have you done? What have you done?" It echoed through the halls of my mind like a perpetual darkness, its shrieks leaving long-lasting mental scars that would never heal. The reason your father cannot speak is that the dead can't. Their voices are taken away from them right after they die. This is simply how it is. But they get it back when they arrive at their final destination, my dad's mouth said with the voice of the old man. I felt nailed to the chair. This unbearable horror felt like a punishment, like a curse. It surely didn't feel like any blessing. This was my own doing, so I had to brave this storm until the very end. And I hoped this whole experience wouldn't claim my life. Tears filled my eyes, and dread kept its tight grip steady on my heart. I finally found my own voice and was able to speak. "Are you who I think you are? How is this even possible? I have so many things to ask you," I said, a knot forming in my throat. "Yes, I am. I reap all the same through the righteous and the vile. I take no sides. You are all the same to me. When your time comes, I am standing close to you. On top of your kind's popular opinion about me, I just help carry the dead to the other side. I take them to the gates or whatever place they are fit for. I leave them there until someone from heaven or hell takes them away for eternity. The old man's voice spoke through my dead father. He told me there's also a purgatory, but he's never been there. There was another one like him responsible for that place. There are also more places where people go, the ones who aren't fit for any of those three mentioned. I only asked Death if he was the reason my father screamed in horror before he died, and he nodded, telling me that's how they first met each other. They soon departed with death eternal. Your dad cannot leave yet because you prayed for him to come back, and a long-forgotten God listened. He granted your wish, but now your dad is being kept between worlds, and that place is cold and lonely. Above all, it is filled with terrible beasts that are ravenously waiting to devour him, Old Man Death said. I asked him what this place my dad was in now, and if he will go to heaven. He told me that this was just a temporary place all souls go through after they die, called the Rift. From time to time, those abominations lurking in the shadows would snatch up souls to feed, and they'd do so violently. He assured me my dad was going to heaven. I didn't want it to be like this. Because of me, my dad couldn't rest. He would have gone to heaven sooner if not for my prayers to unknown gods. I can't hold them much longer, Death said. Say what you have to say and let your father go. I sensed the grave urgency in his voice. My dad started shaking, and there were tears slowly taking shape in his eyes. Large guttural growls and howls started coming from outside the house. Whatever made them was scratching at the windows and at the outside walls. I was terrified. Those shrieks pierced through me like arrows made of trepidation. A volcano of fear that tormented me exploded, its lava flowing ever downwards to the depths of my mind. And tears streamed down my face. I love you so much, Dad. I'll miss you every day for the rest of my life. I'll keep your memory in my mind and my soul. Please watch after me from heaven. I told him, my voice breaking. Then I saw how Death rose at the scythe into the air. A loud metallic sound was heard through the house as the moment it hit my dad. Then I saw Death raise his scythe into the air. A loud metallic sound was heard throughout the house the moment it hit my dad. It reaped through the body, slicing him in two. I saw him disintegrate before my eyes. He turned to dust, and Death absorbed him under his dark mantle. He loves you too. He'll be watching over you from up above. So long, young man. The growling stopped. My dad and the old man were gone. I just stood there by the chair until the morning came. I was speechless. I tried to come to terms with what I've witnessed. This experience was like nothing I have encountered before. Since then, I've been thinking about how I put my dad's soul in danger. If those hungry beasts would have devoured his soul, then we wouldn't ever have had the chance to meet again. Not even in the afterlife. This was the most terrifying thing that's ever happened to me in my life. Rest in peace, dear Dad. Just want to give a shout out to the author of tonight's story. It's written by Postmortem 33. as his username on Reddit. And you can find his writing on No Sleep as well as his own subreddit. And he's a really talented author. He's won a lot of awards on Reddit, No Sleep, for Best Story of the Month. Even, I think, some yearly... I know he's definitely won some yearly awards as well. So he's a very talented writer. I hope you'll all check out his work, and hopefully he'll have a book out one day in the near future that I can plug on the channel here. Thanks for listening again, everyone, today, and please like, subscribe, comment, and check out another video tomorrow at 4 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, as always. Have a good night.